'Tis I, Dr. Dementia! Dominion with part 4. I am really hoping... Actually, I'm not hoping at all. I know this video is not going to be as long as the last one. I can't seem to get under 30 minutes! Also, don't mind me. I sleep. I need to take a break every now and then. Don't worry, I'm speaking through the koala. We're going to talk about update to Intrigue version 2.0, which was released in the fall of 2016. There was a handy-dandy little update pack, just like the original. We're going to go over the cards that were removed, and then the new cards that were added to 2.0. Let's get to it!
Bye-bye!
So just like we did in the base game update pack video, I'm going to go over the cards that were removed from the version 1.0 set before going into the cards that were added into the version 2.0 set. So we have 6 cards being removed. Those are Coppersmith, Great Hall, Saboteur, Scout, Secret Chamber, and Tribute. Now, Coppersmith's reasoning behind it was Donald X. Roccarino had his playtesters decide on Coppersmith being selected as one of the ones that would not make the cut. It's not, again, while this is an early game card that you can take advantage of, you're not going to use it as often. And eventually, you're going to run out of copies to use, hence why. Great Hall, yes, it's an upgrade to a pure state, so you could say that that would be useful with a +1 card, +1 action, but you're still in that 0 card advantage. You're not using any other actions, and there's no other effect besides it. Yeah, the dual action victory card for some cards works great, but that's really the only reason to it. Saboteur, and I've talked about this, the main reason here, it's an attack card that doesn't help you. There's no benefit to you using it, and your opponent could still get use out of it. And for a 5 cost, it wasn't the best option at the time, and more people would probably prefer Swindler over Saboteur. Scout, yes, Scout had its unique use on the dual victory cards for the set, but that was really the main reason for it. Yeah, you could draw out your victory cards, but if you were thinning out your deck and you barely had any victory cards to begin with, it was more of a scry than just deciding on, you're just seeing what was coming up. Better for a wishing well engine, but that's about it. Secret Chamber, again, I stated the obvious fact here with this one. When you're using its reaction effect, yeah, it's that great, but 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna get a lot of use for it. And originally when it came out, some people didn't understand exactly how it worked. I mean, the top effect, its actual action effect was fine. It was just a little bit weak, and with the way the reaction effect was worded, it didn't feel like it came with some more stuff to it. And lastly, with Tribute, you're basing it on your opponent's deck, so there's a little randomization. Yeah, you could base it considering you could keep track of what cards he or she was buying at the time. And yeah, dual victory, they had its uses, but it wasn't. It was more of a random resource when it should have been based for your own deck and not your opponent's deck. I mean, if you were using it and the dual victory cards were on the table, yeah, I would consider it. It wouldn't be bad, but you're basically... there were better options that came out later on. So now with the version 1.0 cards out of the way, let's talk about the new version 2.0 cards that were added with this update pack and with Intrigue 2.0 altogether. We got 7 in total. We're going to start with Courtier. Courtier costs 5 to purchase. Reveal a card from your hand. For each type it has, action, attack, etc. Choose one. +1 action, +1 buy, +3 coin, or gain a gold. The choices must be different. Now for a 5 cost, a lot of these options are pretty good. I will say right now, this is what the dual victory cards are supposed to be used for in this particular case, because basically you're already getting 2 different effects here, and that's fantastic when you consider for 5 costs you can get a gold right off the bat, saving you 1 coin. On a 5-2 split, you could start with this and get a gold very early on, and then take advantage of what else is on the victory piles. Treasures count for this effect as well, and I will say this right now, as we get into the later expansions, there are cards with more than 2 effects, so odds are you might be able to select 3, if not all of these effects all at once, which makes this an utterly devastating card if you think about it, because you're gaining your net 0 on action advantage, you're gaining an extra buy, and then the gold on top of it with +3 coin to use on that same turn. You could get +3 coin and then the gold, so you have a terminal gold and an actual gold. first off, this card, it just synergizes well with Nobles, Harem, and one of the new cards I'm going to talk about, Great Hall. Yes, this does work too if you wanted to use it. Attacks, reactions, durations. This works with a whole bunch of different cards. So, all around, this is just fantastic for any kind of setup that you want to play, and basically deciding how you want to play your turns. Unless you got a 5-2 split, I would say mid-game, but because of the ability to get a goal, try to get it as early as possible. If you see it on the field, just to net yourself a goal to begin with, and then take advantage of its extra effects. Also, this is a card where you want to look at your supply pile, see what's out there, and again, if you have cards that have more than 2 types, especially those reaction cards, pick it up, because you're going to have fun with this. Next up, we have a brand new action-reaction card for the update. It is called Diplomat. Diplomat costs 4 to purchase. For its action effect, we have +2 cards. If you have 5 or fewer cards in your hand after drawing, you also gain +2 actions. For the reaction, when another player plays an attack card, you may first reveal this from your hand of 5 or more cards to draw 2 cards and then discard 3. This was basically set up to counter Minion because of the fact you had to have at least 5 cards in your hand to have to redraw to 4 cards. So this counters Minion perfectly for that reaction effect, because you play this first before the attack card comes down. You draw 2 and then discard 3, so you're -1 at that point. But you set yourself up for the secondary effect above, that no matter what happens, when your turn comes and you play Diplomat, you're gaining +2 cards plus 2 actions. You basically will set your hand up for a lot more flexibility in your coming turn, while also thinning out your deck for some of the crap that you know you're not going to need. You could have some crap coppers or some victory cards you can thin out. You'll be able to do it before your turn, which lets you play well with this. Funny thing though, you can also reveal emotes either before or after revealing the Diplomat as well, which means you could also negate the effect but still use Diplomat's effect to draw the 2 cards, discard 3, still setting yourself up for Diplomat. Just a useful little tidbit there. Overall, this is a decent card. Dependent on if there are plenty of attack cards for you to play, especially ones that are going to require you to discard cards, I would say get it early game. Not many copies. Again, depending on what the supply piles have. You could say mid-game as well. Now, this next card, like Minion in Intrigue 1.0, also synergizes with itself, and that is Lurker. Lurker costs 2 to purchase, +1 action, you choose one. You trash an action card from the supply, or gain an action card from the trash pile. Now, this is one of the first cards that we've talked about that really works around the trash pile, and eventually we're going to talk about an expansion that is basically designed around the trash pile. But again, synergizes with itself because if you play 2 of them at the same time, and for that cost you could, you basically set yourself up to get a very expensive action card from the supply pile and then immediately gaining it right out of the trash pile. And basically, if there were additive effects on cards regarding the trash pile, those would automatically activate because of Lurker's effect. This is just, overall, this is versatility. This basically works with any action card available, no matter its cost. And if you're gonna play this, you're either playing it to use this effect primarily, so you need at least 2, or you're doing this because you know you have enough of a specific action card that you do not want your opponent taking advantage of it. Unfortunately, they can also purchase Lurker, so keep that in mind. This is one where you need to have at least 2 of these in order to truly benefit from the effect. And like I said, if there's a restriction on an action card that prevents you from getting it normally, Lurker works around that. And there are so many cards basically that I've already talked about, or I will soon talk about in this series, that you could have fun with. This is definitely this is an early game card. This is an early game card because this sets yourself up for essentially anything. But for 2 costs, mid game, even late game, if you know you need to pick up an extra action card just to better yourself set up for your provinces. definitely a very nice card to add. Next up, we have a brand new dual victory card, and that is Mill. Mill costs 4 to purchase, action victory card, +1 card, +1 action, 1 victory point, and then you may discard 2 cards for +2 coins. So right off the bat, this is a double evolution here. This is a straight up evolution of Great Hall, but a double evolution of Estate. Yes, it is a +1 card, +1 action. We've talked about Great Hall and how that's not the best thing, but the discarding 2 cards for 2 treasure is fantastic. First off, a couple of things to note here. You could essentially upgrade into this card if you basically were using this and Great Halls, essentially, but if you had both of them, why? Second of all, this is good in an Ironworks engine because of the dual action and victory, +1 card, +1 action for Ironworks' effect, and getting a fantastic card that you could use anywhere during during the game, just for the fact that you could discard action cards that you know you're not going to play on that turn, victory cards that are completely useless to you, just to get some added effect. Just be careful. Don't discard treasures unless, for whatever reason, one of them is a copper. If you can at least discard something other than 2 coppers, then you're getting a net benefit out of this. And it's usually best to play Mill last because of that. You want to be absolutely sure that at the end of your turn, the action cards you're not going to be able to play, or the action cards you don't want to play, is what you want to discard for this effect. Definitely early game, especially if you can hit up the Ironworks quick enough. I recommend it. It's definitely better than Great Halls, I'll tell you that right now. Next up, we have Patrol. Patrol costs 5 to purchase, +3 cards, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, put the victory cards and curses into your hand, put the rest back in any order. Now, this is a straight up upgrade to Scout, and I know I talked about where Scout was a little bit more unique in situations. Patrol is going to be more all-around versatile. First off, the +3 cards makes it so if you're gonna draw into dead cards, you can go ahead and do it then. Then you get that secondary effect of checking the top 4 cards of your deck, and then any of those victory or curses go right into your hand, preventing your next turn from being more of a dead hand for you and being able to do a lot more with it. Of course, the dual victory cards also work in this advantage, which is fantastic. Keep in mind, though, the one downside is while you do get +3 cards, you do not get any extra actions, or at least a +1 action like Scout did. So you want to time it so this is probably one of the last cards you're going to play in your hand, just to set yourself up for the next turn. I would say if I had a choice between this or Mill to play last in your hand, it depends on what you really got. If this is the last action card you play, then play this first because you might open yourself up to a better hand on the next round. With a 5 cost, though, at least mid-game here. After that, you pretty much will have a way to work around a lot of the dead cards. Now, one other thing I should mention, again, with curses, this is a viable option too, if for whatever reason you do not have any way of trashing curses. Keep that in mind. Next one we have is Replace. Replace costs 5 to purchase. You trash a card from your hand. You gain a card costing up to 2 more than it. Sound familiar already? If the game card is an action or a treasure, put it on top of your deck. If it's a victory card, each other player gains a curse. So this is the first card we're going to talk about that is a straight upgrade from a previous well, in this case, the base game. This is a straight up upgrade of Remodel with that added twist. Let's talk about this from a couple of perspectives here. First off, I've already talked about how good Remodel is, just being able to gain, a card costing up to 2 more than it, and trashing, a card from your hand just in case you had curses for whatever reason. But this is where you could essentially use estates. Use Replace on an estate, you gain a mill, you're already gaining a hell of a benefit from it. That's one decent example, but that brings me to my next point. Dual victory cards are fantastic for this because you're going to gain both effects with it. Regardless if it was something like Harem or if it's like Mills, you're going to be able to not only put the card on top of your deck, but each of the players is going to get a curse out of it. That's why it's an action attack card. Another useful strategy for this is comboing it with 2 other specific cards, Courtier, or even Bandit for that matter. And the reason being is both of them have the ability to gain you golds. if you combo off of those golds and start gaining a lot of duels in your deck, you could just use replace to turn them into into provinces. You're +8 in victory points, while your opponent goes -1 for every one of those you do. And if you get a bunch of golds, you're basically going to buy out the provinces before your opponent even has a chance to do it. And that's before, taking advantage of the golds. Of course, those are just some examples, but it's fantastic. And I honestly, I need to say this right now. This is something that Saboteur should have been. And it sucks that it ended up like that. But this is where an attack is devastating if played correctly, and you get a hell of a benefit out of it. This is definitely a late game card. But if you're able to, especially on a 2-5 split, get it at the very beginning and hold on to it until you have a use for it. I normally don't say that for action cards, but worst case scenario, you could just get replaced on a 5-2 split at the very beginning, start working on your estates, and turn those into mills, and you're going to build up some treasure in no time at all. So, go for it. And the final card we're going to look at for Intrigue 2.0 is Secret Passage. Secret Passage costs 4 to purchase, +2 cards, +1 action. Take a card from your hand and put it anywhere in your deck. Now, when you look at cycling cards, this is as strong as you can get for it. You can put this anywhere in your deck. Doesn't matter where. And that's it. 9 times out of 10, though, depending on the card, you're going to want it on the top. And basically, there's potential. This sets yourself up, obviously, for a few different cards. First off, Vassal, because you just get that +2 coin and can just use Vassal right off the bat. They're immediately playing the card. Wishing Well, this is where you can take advantage of Wishing Well, because you could put this second from the top of the deck, draw into your card, name the card that you put into the deck as a result of Secret Passage, and boom, comes back into your hand. You're just basically giving you the chance to just pull into some more cards here. Oddly enough, Spy, good way to just get the card discarded, get it out of there. Patrol is another good one as well. If you've got victory cards, it just thins it out better. There are some circumstances on that as well. Sentry, another good one. Basically, if you had curses or even crappy estate cards, put them on the top of your deck, get them ready for Sentry, and boom, that goes to it. There are some other cards I can talk about, but you basically just decide how you want to play this. You could play this by itself and just go with that +2 card, +1 action. I mean, that's nothing to scoff at that point. Just to increase your hand size, but that secondary effect sets yourself up for some great combos. Not just with what I've just talked about. There's other cards as well. You could also get ready for Masquerade, which is fantastic as well. You can set yourself up to have something to throw away if you know you're not going to be able to get rid of any of the other cards you have. There's a lot of options, and there's many of them I haven't talked about yet. Just for spoiler's sake, because we'll go into them when we go into those other expansions. For cost, you could definitely pick this up anytime, during any part of the game. Mid game is where it's going to benefit the most from, because once you have the necessary actions for you to really work with Secret Passage, then that's where it's going to start shining. But for the +2 cards, +1 action, just drawing into some more treasure helps out a lot. So if you see it, grab it when you can. And with that, that is the last of the Intrigue 2.0 cards. With that, we can now get ready to talk about Dominion's second expansion, Seaside. Specifically Seaside version 1.0, because there is an update pack and a version 2.0, but we will now get into some new card types that you've never seen before, and this is going to be where the game gets a little bit more interesting, and you're going to see a lot of new combos coming up. And with that, thank you very much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment if you want to have a little bit of chat and talk about some of your favorite cards so far. And if you really like these videos and want to see more, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. Every subscriber helps for me. You can also catch me on Twitter to keep you apprised of updates, and my Twitch for when I do my streaming, especially with Dominion Fridays, though unfortunately the last one was on a Saturday. Sorry guys, the missus needed me. Wife aggro. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Sayonara.